Welcome, everybody, and thank you for attending today's webinar, Improving Park Operations, a discussion with Seattle Parks and Recreation. My name is Mary Ellen Kennedy, and I will be moderating for today's presentation. So we're going to go ahead and get started in just a second. But first, I would like to say that we are very excited to have a full house of presenters today. So we have Michael Linn of Seattle Parks and Recreation and AssetWorks EAM specialist Christy McGrath and Rob Delamarna. During today's webinar, this group will have an open discussion on how Seattle Parks and Recreation uses asset management technology and best practices to improve their overall operations. So if you have any questions you'd like to ask true parks and asset management professionals, today is your day. So speaking of questions, I do just want to give everybody a quick heads up. The microphones have been muted, so if any of you have any questions at any time during the presentation, you can use the WebEx chat tool. You should all see the chat icon located on your screen, and this acts as an instant messaging tool. Please feel free to use the WebEx chat tool to enter any questions during the presentation. Make sure you send them to host, that's me, and I'll be happy to field and relay them to our presenters at the conclusion of the presentation for a brief Q&A session. So with that said, I think we are ready to get started. So here's a brief look at our agenda today, but to really kick things off, we are going to just give a brief introduction on AssetWorks EAM.
Thanks, Mary Ellen. Like Mary Ellen said, our conversation with Seattle Parks and Recreation today is going to center mostly around how they work with our EAM solution. So we just really want to start out by giving a quick overview of what AssetWorks and EAM are all about. So here at AssetWorks, we offer that really help asset-intensive organizations streamline processes and maximize efficiencies in managing and maintaining all asset types. So everything from trees and park benches to street signs and everything in between in one integrated system. We have EAM, our EAM solution, and part of that is also our fleet management solution. We have fuel and EV. We integrate with and there's a lot of work order management functionality in that. As far as our mission is really simple. We really aim and strive to provide innovative and practical solutions that help our customers and the people that they serve. For about 40 years now, and we're proud to be an industry leader in asset management. So we're going to take a look here at what we manage. Our software really empowers users with the latest asset management technology. And with that, it's maintaining and managing assets of every type. So point, linear, and boundary-based assets. And when we're looking across the landscape of a city or a county, we're going to talk today with Parks and Forestry and everything that they manage. But one of the biggest benefits of EAM is really its flexibility. And looking across the landscape of a city or a county, we really play in all of these different areas. So the system can manage linear assets. Like I said, that's going to be, looking at your streets, buildings, and everything that rolls up into buildings, waste management, water and wastewater, engineering and planning. We're going to talk a little bit about some of that functionality with Mike today as well. So really across the entire landscape of a city or county is where our EAM solutions play today. So we want to welcome Mike Linn from Seattle Parks and Recreation. Mike, could you give us a little background about your organization and what you guys manage?
Sure. My name is Mike Linn. I am with Seattle Parks and Recreation. I'm glad I'm here on the webinar with everyone that's able to join. With Seattle Parks and Recreation, we have roughly over 350 staff from our facilities, grounds maintenance, and natural resource divisions that utilize the EAM software. They enter their labor hours on those work orders that can go towards maybe about 250,000 assets that we have in our system, in the EAM system. These assets comprise of either parks properties, buildings, systems of those buildings, which can include HVAC systems, roofs, boilers, etc. We also look at the grounds of the property, irrigation systems. You had mentioned benches and trees, and those are just to name a few of the assets that we have in the EAM system. They also use the EAM system to review and approve their timesheets every 2 weeks. We went live probably the tail end of 2016. We worked with AssetWorks closely with a dedicated team to implement EAM probably about a year and a half prior to that. So that rollout was several months over those different divisions, and overall, staff have become used to the system. The area that we cover is pretty much within the city of Seattle, the city limits. We have over 489 parks, 25 miles of boulevards, and like I said, we've been using the software since 2015.
When it comes to facilities, can you elaborate a little bit more on that, on how you're managing facilities today?
Sure. So our facilities was the kind of the first division that we brought on live with the EAM system. They were utilizing a paper-based system over probably a decade or so, where tracking work orders and tracking preventive maintenance was very difficult, as it was kind of a manual entry process, at the end. And so we definitely did not have real-time information on assets. So by utilizing EAM, staff and management are now able to see, visually what work is being performed on assets, when preventive maintenance is due, who's doing that work, how long, what tasks, and also, what time it takes to do work orders, and if work orders need to be put in delay status. So it's definitely helped to be able to report out and visualize a lot of the asset management aspects.
Cool. So moving on to, kind of the things that it's been on the forefront for everybody for a long time now, has been the COVID-19 pandemic. It's really has affected the way that everyone works. Can you tell us more about how using EAM has really helped SPR, Seattle Parks and Rec, handle the transition to remote work?
Of course. Majority of our staff, work in the field. One of the great things that we did early on was put EAM on the ability to access it anywhere. So we use single sign-on to authenticate, so someone can get into the EAM software from any computer where they're at. So by using EAM as the system for timesheets, it allowed staff to go ahead and put time, into the system and not have to be on site. So, I mean, with the pandemic in early 2020, Seattle Parks and Recreation, like many organizations, we had to adapt quickly to working differently. And like I said, unfortunately, for many of the staff, that meant not being able to work, because a lot of the work is done in person. So there's a lot of changes to where work was being done, and how staff were being utilized, during that early stages. As an example, it's a little difficult to mow grass at Discovery Park, which is our largest city park, when you can't come into work. So because of staff having to work elsewhere or in different capacities, EAM was allowed to be able to access it anywhere. For the system admins of EAM, so myself and my team, we fortunately were able to adjust quickly, as we were able to perform all functions, even upgrading the software several times over the last year and a half. And the department has authorized the use of IT equipment at home, so that was, staff have been able to, take some of that information or some of that equipment at home. So like I said, we have single sign-on turned on. Our system admins are able to remote and do the full function of the job virtually. One of the things that we had to kind of get going was virtual training So creating videos and virtual meetings. Staff that are not very comfortable with computers, kind of unfortunately had to kind of learn on the fly. And so that was one of the things we had to do was get more virtual trainings going. Definitely every crew had their difficulty and challenges. One of the things we also did was we create kind of a central work order if it was a COVID related work. And so multiple locations or shops can post their time towards that particular work order. That's just some of the things that we've done over the last year and a half too.
You guys did a great job adjusting on the fly. I guess it's fair to say that providing accessibility to everyone was critical to maintain, the operations that you manage.
Definitely. I mean, EAM was a critical software that it was part of our mission essential function because it was the timesheet entry point for those 350 plus staff. So we had to make sure it was accessible just to make sure that staff got paid.
Hey, Mike, this is Rob. Hey, can you tell us a little more about the adjustments that you had to make for the crews in order for them to perform their assigned tasks and the work that was assigned to them?
Yeah, so for our grounds crew, we use the multi-asset work orders. And so that is kind of our route work orders for the grounds staff. By utilizing the multi-asset work order, it allows the ability for staff to have kind of a small set of work orders. And then when they click on it, they can see the locations that they're at. So a lot of the grounds, as you can see in the pictures there, they may do multiple tasks at a location, and their route will include maybe 10 or so parks that they go to in a various day. By having these multi-asset work orders, staff are able to quickly pick on that top right. You can see there's what's referred to as a parent work order of that multi-asset work order, and they can click on it, and then in the title it kind of explains what that route is or what that location is. Then they can select what park they're at and select what number of hours that they've worked there. It gives the ease of use for staff to just quickly say, well, this is the route that I'm at. I can click on that. These are the parks that I went to, and this is the amount of time that I spent there. In addition, they can post towards various tasks along with that multi-asset work order. The routes can also be assigned to individuals or crews. The one thing with the multi-asset work order, we set it up so they're kind of quarterly, so staff they know what those work order numbers are, and they can quickly go to it. The reason for the quarterly refresh is just so that the labor postings don't get too crazy, too out of hand, but it kind of cleans it up and refreshes it on a quarterly basis.
So it sounds like, as your crews are out working, they obviously have equipment that they work with. How do you guys manage, all that equipment and, creating work orders against that or the details against managing that equipment?
So we have a equipment repair shop, and right now we have probably a little over 2,000 pieces of small equipment that they manage. The small equipment shop, they recently began utilizing EAM to manage the small equipment. Small equipment can include mowers, backpack blowers, edgers, etc., that are used by those grounds districts at the various parks. So what happens is the staff at these districts bring in or have the small equipment picked up when repairs and or hopefully preventive maintenance is needed. That's picked up by the equipment repair shop, brought into the repair shop, and then staff at the equipment repair shop can use a barcode scanner that pulls up the asset information within EAM that we put barcodes on the small equipment. Then the staff within the repair shop can create the appropriate work orders, work on the equipment, post labor towards it, and then close out the work order, and then we can have a maintenance history of that small equipment, and then the equipment sent back out to the districts. There's definitely still some challenges because each district, they are able to purchase their own equipment, and the equipment repair shop may not know of these assets until repairs are actually needed. So one of the other benefits is, it does centralize some of our small equipment inventory. It also helps crew to identify assets and work history, along with the ownership of that particular equipment. So within EAM, we can say, this edger is part of our Southeast District grounds repair shop. So we can say, okay, well, we know that they're the owners of it. And so EAM gives that flexibility of being able to track inventory and also, track the model, track the make, being able to get a lot more information. It's definitely with any integration with software, there is time to allow buy-in and time for change. So that's it's always evolving, always improving.
Good deal. Good deal. So let's talk about reporting a little bit. Knowing having all this data and having the workflows that you guys are going through, and obviously the system is collecting a lot of data. Can you talk about a little bit about the the decision-making process from the data and the reports that you're creating, and then also can you talk a little bit about the special interest group that we have going on for business intelligence and how that's going for you? Give us a little bit of insight on that.
Sure. So we have been using Power BI to visualize some of the information that's coming out of EAM, along with summarizing it with other data sets, probably for several years now. It's definitely helped visualize work order statuses, labor summarizations, timesheet details, and asset information. As you can see, it provides access to some of these reports that are not everyone within the city of Seattle or even within Seattle Parks and Recreation are an EAM user. So they may not be comfortable with going into that software. So it allows us to, put those reports out externally and just give a URL to someone, or put that link somewhere for someone management-wise or within this our department to access it. In addition, we can integrate with other data sources, as I said. One of the things is our HR system, our payroll system, and our financial system. So we can definitely drill down into merging some timesheet information, getting into employee information that's outside of the EAM software, and being able to visualize that. It's definitely been very helpful. In addition, Power BI has some various visualizations. One of them is an Esri map, which we have pulled in some layers. In the next slide, when I get to that, I'll point that out. Kind of other various report types are timesheet related, work order statuses, and just comparison of those work orders, along with asset preventive maintenance. You've also touched on you inquired about the analytics, and I am part of a group that some clients are providing feedback to AssetWorks, while AssetWorks is developing an analytics module that does utilize the Power BI platform. It's been very beneficial, I think, for both parties to be able to see where AssetWorks is going, and also to provide some feedback that have been able to see within that incorporation. So it's definitely been going on that group for, I think we started in July, so definitely several months now. And some other examples. So these timesheet examples help management know when and by whom timesheets are being approved. So like on the left side, we can give an idea of where timesheets are at, especially with we have a very tight deadline. As the system admins, we have to run a process that uploads the timesheet data from EAM into the city payroll system. And so we need to make sure that everyone's timesheet is completed. So this helps, to visually and report out where timesheets are, who hasn't approved them and where they're at. The work order map visual on the right, it uses the Esri visualization, and it can pull various layers. So in this case right now, this image is showing city's racial and social equity layer, and we have it compared to the work order count and work order labor hours being performed on an asset. Definitely have seen improvements of Power BI. Microsoft's put a lot of improvements over the last couple of years. And I can just, foresee that changing over times with more visuals, more ability to, analyze data. So, and also in this visual, you can see that you can even look at a timeline. So if you push the play, it would show visually where labor hours and, how big that bubble is compared to the data set. So it can help staff and help management determine where work is being performed in relation to racial and social equity areas of the city of Seattle.
Hey, it's crazy how powerful BI can be. So I'd like to switch gears a bit and talk a little bit more about the functionality and what you're using for work orders and timesheets. I know that EAM fits out of the box for a lot of what SPR is doing, but I know that you guys also did some enhancements and interfaces. So can you tell us a little bit more about that and to that extent, how engaging with our professional services group had been for you?
Definitely. So one of the things that was kind of one of the early requirements was Seattle Parks and Recreation. We wanted a single system for work order entries that would then flow over to timesheet entries for then staff to review. We went live with this at the beginning of 2018, and that was in line with the deployment of the city's new financial system that went into effect the beginning of 2018. Again, we wanted a simple way for staff that they didn't need to know all the codings, all behind the scene codings. They just need to know where they're working at, what they're doing, and how long they were there. So as you asked, we did work with AssetWorks to design an interface that pulls kind of all those codings behind the scenes that maps to either assets or tasks or the shop location of where the person is working out of. Definitely made it easy for staff to not only know where they're working or where their work order is or their indirect tasks, and indirect tasks can be meetings or trainings or paid time off. So it definitely helped with staff not needing to know all that information. Since that deployment, we've also worked with AssetWorks a little bit more to do some additional enhancements or as it relates to timesheets. Plus, we're getting some feedback from staff and management on additional enhancements that they would like. So we're definitely going to reach out to AssetWorks and do some more. EAM does have a clock in and clock out feature that does pass information over to the timesheet or the time card portal. But we in Seattle Parks and Recreation, we needed more information than just a regular 8-hour day. We need to know, again, some of that coding behind what's attached to the asset and what's attached to the task and the shop location. So, working with AssetWorks is definitely beneficial to, being able to get to that point. And like I said, we're going to reach out to them and hopefully do some more enhancements.
Sorry about that. So what lies ahead in terms of, what the future holds for, the vision for EAM going forward? You mentioned that there were some enhancements that management was considering or some desires that they wanted to approach, but can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so we're actually working with AssetWorks right now to do integration with our citywide customer service software with EAM. So that will allow service requests that come in at a city level and be routed down to us in Seattle Parks and Recreation at a department level, and then create a service request within the EAM product software that then our dispatchers can review and appropriately assign to the shop that needs to work on that. In that integration, when that work order is completed, we're then going to pass that information back over to the city of Seattle's customer service software. So that's one integration that we're working with AssetWorks right now. Another one is we are working with trying to get more GIS data. There is some out-of-box GIS integrations that EAM has. So we're working on that to push some of the work order data over into the GIS, and that will allow the ability to create additional map layers to say, where labor is being posted, where work's being done in relation to those equity maps, as kind of some of the slides prior that I showed. We're also, as I kind of mentioned, talking about some timesheet enhancements that will definitely reach out to AssetWorks. We are looking at version 21.1 and any point release that comes out of that. We're hoping by the end of the year to do the necessary testing and roll that out into our production environment. Definitely continue to create Power BI reports, and also participate in the AssetWorks analytics special interest group. I think that's, yeah. I mean, there's a lot. There's mobile focus that we've talked about, and hopefully someday we can get into to definitely get more out in the field devices, and then work on assets out in the field, which allows staff to go in and change the attributes and change information of assets that then can come back into the EAM software, and we're not relying on emails or word of mouth to say, oh, this asset needs to be updated or changed. We can then pass ownership onto work units to be able to do that out in the field. So yeah, looking forward to the possibilities of what's coming up.
That's good to know. Sounds very exciting. What the vision and the championing that you're doing. We see a lot of great things that you're looking forward to. So we really appreciate it as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mike, for all that information, and to you, Christy and Rob. So, all right, everyone, this is Mary Ellen again. So we're going to open up the floor for some of your questions. Just a reminder, if you have any more questions at this time, please send them to host using the WebEx chat tool on your screen. Provided that we have enough time, I'll pass your question on to the presenters, and they'll be happy to give you an answer. But everyone, so we did have a couple questions come through. Let me just jump into some of them here. So one that came in was about capital planning. So Mike, how does capital planning benefit your operations at SPR today?
So the capital plan module is definitely helping us coordinate all information about planned capital projects in a single kind of place, and we can associate them with specific assets. Currently, we're working on building out processes to better leverage the predictive modeling capabilities, and then help with kind of capital finance or capital forecasting. The module has definitely been helpful for for a capital planning unit to be able to envision what assets need to be included into a 2-year capital plan or a 5-year capital plan, and then being able to see trends of maybe our HVAC unit is going out and doing a lot of repairs on a let's say a boiler at a community center. They're then able to see a lot of going out there and working on it and what kind of tasks that they're doing on it, and then being able to say, okay, well, maybe instead of continuously going out there, maybe it's time to upgrade that asset, and able to being able to see the lifespan of that asset. Hopefully that answered your question.
Absolutely, thank you. So another question, actually a couple questions came through. I just think some people aren't as familiar with this process as you obviously are with your team. But then also Rob and Christy, feel free to jump in. But we did have some questions about the special interest group or SIG process. Specifically, like what was that SIG process like for the asset analytics tool? How did you guys get involved? What does that process really entail? So Mike, if you want to give your perspective, and then Christy or Rob, feel free to jump in with the AssetWorks side of things.
Yeah, as a client of AssetWorks, kind of AssetWorks reached out and just see if we were interested in joining. And I think because we utilize Power BI and AssetWorks is looking at you also utilizing Power BI, we kind of felt it was a good incentive for us to join that group and being able to say, well, we have some recommendations on this way or that. In addition, with the way that we use the AM is not very fleet centric, so we wanted to make sure that we had kind of that voice to say, okay, don't always think about the assets that are fleet and they move around. A lot of our assets are stationary, they can't move, and we go to those assets. So just to make sure that a voice outside of fleet was part of that group.
Yeah, and
Go ahead. Rob.
I was going to say, just to kind of continue on that and maybe take a step backward, think of the special interest group as kind of a focus group on steroids. So in a sense, we look at the special interest group from a product viability standpoint or a feature or what have you. And so what we'll do is, or what we've done in the past is assemble these special interest groups around, centered around a particular initiative. In this case, it was business intelligence and using Power BI or Tableau or something like that. So in a sense, it's a focus group, but it's also access to our development team and the domain experts on our side, and really providing a one-to-one relationship between our the customer base that wants to participate in that initiative and the domain experts, in this case the development staff. So we have other special interest groups going on as well. And if you're interested in more information in that, feel free to reach out to myself or Christy, and we can definitely provide more information along those lines. And Christy, if you have any other insight on that, feel free.
I think you nailed it.
Awesome, great. Thanks, Mike, and thanks, Rob. So another question that came in, I believe this one will be for Mike as well. This came in earlier. So when you were discussing, how SPR responded to the COVID-19 pandemic, you mentioned tracking COVID-related tasks separately in EAM. Can you elaborate on what kind of tasks you were tracking and how you kind of managed that?
Yeah, I can try to give a little high example or high view of it. Our department, sometimes we like to track out, or if we need to get reimbursed, either from the federal government or, just make sure certain labor or funds are going to a certain, area. On the financial side, we may need to set up what we refer to as activities or even projects. So on the EAM side, we would then say, okay, well, we need to specifically say that if you're going to go work at a community center and help with just opening up the community center or even setting up the community center, whether it was for storm response, that that we'd set that task up, and then it would just be mapped to the coding. So, I mean, it's mainly just to help us code hours appropriately to either track that information and or be reimbursed at a federal level, especially when it related to the COVID response.
Great, thank you. So looks like we might have one more question. So I know, Mike, that your team usually attends the AssetWorks Academy. What are you guys hoping to learn more about at the Academy in 2022 if you're attending?
We are planning on attending. It's definitely been missing it for the last couple of years. I think at every academy we've definitely learned what improvements are being done with the software. Networking, having that very close relationship with AssetWorks. Definitely can call on Rob or some of the other staff within AssetWorks and always be able to work well with them. I think for the AssetWorks Academy, we're definitely looking to see what's on the horizon for the EAM software, and also being able to see what other clients are using. There's some that are when we started, we went to the first academy. We definitely felt like fish out of water because one, we were still in implementation, so we had no idea about the software. That and also EAM was fairly new, so there wasn't any specific EAM breakout sessions or information about it. Definitely over the last 6 years, there's a lot more one clients and a lot more breakout sessions and a lot more information about EAM in general. So I think shortly networking and what's new with the EAM products is what I'm looking forward to.
Awesome. We're excited to have you guys, definitely. So I think that's all the questions that have come through. So keep in mind, if you guys have any other questions that come through or something pops into your head, then you see Christy and Rob's emails on the screen. But with that said, I think that's all the time we have for today. So at this time, I would like to thank all of you again for taking the time to attend today's webinar presentation. I hope you've all secured some valuable takeaways to keep in mind moving forward. Mike, Christy, Rob, I'd like to thank you on behalf of AssetWorks once again for sharing your experience and expertise with everyone today. So the contact information for the AssetWorks team is available here if you have any follow-up questions. But with that said, I hope you all have a great day and we look forward to having you with us next time.